Good evening. It is Monday, May 8th, and we will start the Yellow Medicine East School Board meeting. We'll start it out with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next, we'll do a roll call of board members. Ron
Winter.
Amanda Lacey,
Jeremy LeBlanc.
Sonia Peterson,
Matt Zempel.
Laurel Christensen.
all right, and we need an approval of tonight's agenda.
I can add a couple comments. We did make a couple changes there, but no need. Your current agenda right here is correct. There's an item under new business personnel. There's actually 2 items in that section. Okay?
Do I have an approval of tonight's agenda?
Motion by LeBlanc to approve.
Thank you.
Second by Zempel.
Thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? No. Approval of tonight's agenda passes. Reading of the YME mission statement. Do you mind?
I can do it. Our mission is to provide a caring environment of high expectations that prepares every student for a successful future and instills the value of learning.
Thank you, Jeremy. Is there any public address to the Board of Education tonight? Go ahead, sir.
Want me to come up?
Sure.
Yeah. Would you mind introducing yourself?
Yeah, yeah. For those of you that don't know, I'm Corey Olson. My wife's Danielle Olson. She's a teacher over at Burt Rainey. I have 3 kids, a 9th grader Connor, 5th grader Charlie, and a 1st grader Janelle. The reason I've come tonight is to ask for your consideration to allow 6th graders to run cross country next year. We have, my oldest runs cross country. It's kind of been a family deal. He loves to run. We do family runs. My middle son, though, Charlie, is a 5th grader coming up to 6th grade. He's my sport nut. But football's not his thing. He loves sports, and he's done football for the last couple of years as 4th grader and 5th grader in contact football. But he'd really like to run cross country. Now, I don't know if everybody knows, but there are 5 other schools that I know of in our conference that already allow their 6th graders to run. One, Springsburg, Lakeview, Canby, RTR, and Tracy Milroy Valley. And the reason I asked for this is because, as everybody knows, not everybody's suited to do certain sports. And we don't have the numbers that we once did in cross country. And, we think that talking to Scott Jans and Adam, the 2 coaches, we thought that if there would be an opportunity for the younger kids to start, because they've already had an opportunity to try out football, they have an opportunity, the girls have an opportunity to try out volleyball. And then, of course, you have the basketball, and of course Charlie's favorite sport, baseball. But it's both a boys and a girls, so you wouldn't be excluding one. Both boys and girls could try it out. I know for a fact there's already, Charlie and another 5th grader that's going to be 6th grade next year would love to run. And then Charlie said a couple of his friends didn't know what cross country was. So I think there'd be an opportunity for some of these kids to try out running and things like that. The other thing I'd like to say is that for added expense to the school, cross country is different in some sports. Sometimes the junior high goes over here, the varsity goes over here. Well, cross country, you'd have no extra busing, because at a cross country meet, you have your junior high, your JV, and your varsity all run at the same location. So, in my mind, it's not costing the school anything extra to let the 6th graders run. The other schools are already doing it, so it's not like they'd be competing against kids 2 years older than in 8th grade. A lot of the 8th graders are already running junior varsity. So in the junior high race, it's mainly 6th graders and 7th graders already that run that. And the other aspect of it is, the idea that maybe we could recruit some kids. You get them thinking about cross-country at a younger age. And, right now, a lot of the kids, I have nothing against football, so don't get me wrong. I got nothing against football or volleyball or anything like that. But some kids have already had the chance to try those, and they've established a sport, And then when they get to 7th grade, they just continue on with that sport. I played football when I was in 7th grade. It was not my fit, I didn't mind football, but it wasn't my sport. When I was an 8th grader, the cross-country coach called me and asked if I wanted to run cross-country. I didn't even know what cross-country was. And it turned out it was my favorite sport. I'm not saying that's why it's one of Connor's favorite sports, or why Charlie wants to run. But I am sure glad that the coach called me and introduced me to cross-country, because I still run to this day quite a bit and things, and it's turned out to be kind of a family deal. And I will, not everybody's been to a cross-country meet, and there are things I think a guy learns at cross-country that maybe you don't learn at other sports, and one that just sticks out to me is, when I ran cross-country, yes, you wanted to do good, and you wanted your team to do good, but you also cheered for other teams. You don't see many people going to a football game and cheering for the other team when you play football. But it's very common at a race that you'll see like a junior high runner watching the varsity race cheering for somebody on their team, but then somebody from Lakeview comes and they'll cheer for this person from Lakeview too. And it's just a really neat camaraderie type thing. And, so I guess I'll leave it at that. I kind of I told Scott that I'd come, and Adam might come and ask, and I know my son Charlie would be ecstatic if he would be allowed to run next year. He's already talked about a training program this summer, if he was gonna get to run next year and stuff. He'd probably run no matter what, but he would probably practice a little harder if he got to run next year and stuff, so. I guess if there aren't any questions,
Anybody have any questions for Cory?
I'll get out of your hair.
Thank you for bringing that to our attention.
Yeah,
Thanks, Cory.
okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right. Next up is the consent agenda. Do we have approval for tonight's consent agenda? A motion?
Amanda Lucille, make that motion.
Linda?
For a second?
I'll second, Ronald Christensen.
Any discussion? Everything's on board book. Anybody have any discussion, anything they wanna talk about? Now I need, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no? The consent agenda passes. And then we'll go to reports. First off, Mrs. Hanson at Fort Rainy Elementary.
Good evening, everyone. First thing, if you heard Kool and the Gang singing Celebration today, shortly after lunch, it was what we do when Burt Rainey finishes all state testing. And so every year when that song comes on, especially the older kids, the younger ones aren't quite sure what's happening, but staff and students realize that we have officially concluded. And so number one on my agenda was our academic accountability assessments, which, just for your information, includes MCAs and then also MTAS testing. And MCAs in reading and math statewide closed last Friday, and science will close this Friday. And as of shortly after lunch today, Burt Rainey is done. In fact, testing materials have been inventoried and we have already called for pickup, so we are very excited about that. Embargo data, just so you're aware, each year that data, even though we have on-demand reports as far as scores and tentative scores coming in, that is embargoed until late August. I checked, and last year that was released on August 25th, so we'll be able to report more to you at that time. Burt Rainey e-learning update. I believe this is going to get discussed later, but I just wanted to kind of tell you some things that Burt Rainey has done. We actually formed a small committee that we asked for volunteers, and we have 3 teachers and myself that are serving on that committee. We started out with a staff survey, which you'll see linked on Board Book, followed by a parent survey. As of 4:15 today, we had 60 families that had already responded to the parent survey, and ours was set up so that if you have 2 children in the elementary school, you just take it once. So that 60 families represents quite a few students. Our next steps will be our staff and committee are going to dig deep into the results from the surveys, determine how we can best improve it for next year, and I anticipate being able, if appropriate, to bring an updated plan in June to you. National Teacher Day was last week, and I just want to thank all of the numerous businesses and individuals that donated for our secret project this year. We actually did door prizes for certified staff, and every 30 minutes, starting at 8 a.m. and it went till about 4, we announced through email dozens of door prizes that area businesses and individuals donated. So special thanks to everyone who helped with that. There were also various activities in both of our buildings that helped celebrate teachers and staff. Number 4 on my item is Bert's Adventures, which you actually have a paper copy, but it's linked also. I want to just start out by saying staff have put in a tremendous amount of time and creative thinking. It even got down to, as we looked at grades, what are we missing? What are some topics that we could do? So many of my teachers, and you do not see my non-certified staff on here, but they have already signed up to help support those activities this summer. You're going to see some pretty extensive field trips. And I just happened to pull registration on my way over. Some of these have a cap on already, just because of numbers that we can take into a specific facility. Others do not have a cap on, but some of our sessions are already in the high 20s and 30s for students signing up. We've got, like our gardening club is going to actually go all summer. That one has many students signed up. The Stingers game, we're already in the mid-30s. But again, dozens of students that have had an opportunity. And the other thing that I wanted to mention is that my social workers are also going to be working with families. We keep a pretty detailed registration list, and so our social workers can view by grade level students that maybe are under the care of an adult that maybe may not be their parents, and so they're reaching out to them saying, this is how we register for summer events, we really recommend this for your child, how can we help? And so we expect all of them to be filled, and actually I'm anticipating a waiting list for quite a few of them.
Mrs. Hanson, is this
Yes.
the most you've ever offered?
Absolutely,
Yes.
yes, it's absolutely the most we've
Wow.
ever offered,
Yeah,
yes.
that's great.
Yeah.
Just as a reminder, this is what we're spending our $161 on, so.
For example, and there's so many great activities, but it's everything from music to like engineering and robotics. But I think of like the Children's Theater. We're gonna be taking a group of students to the Children's Theater in Minneapolis. For many of those students, they've never been there and they would never go there. So, that's the type of thing that we really try to zero in on. Even things like the Stingers game, which is very local, just in Wilmer, a lot of our kids haven't been able to do that, so.
This is great. The summer gets so long for some of these kiddos that, they need is.
The other thing my upper grades came up with was kind of like a farewell trip. So
Yes.
like our exiting fifth graders that, you know, have been together, kind of a farewell, we'll miss you, and same with our fourth graders. So they've got a full day, you know, 10+ hours of activities out of town that they'll be doing. And again, that would not have happened if staff would not have stepped up to teach in the summer. So I certainly appreciate that. A playground update, again, have been in constant contact with our playground contractor, and his timeline remains what he has told Mr. Schneider and I pretty much from day one. And so right now, on their calendar, they are planning on being on site the 8th and the 9th to remove anything that isn't purchased through the auction. And then the following week, they will actually already be installing equipment, which is the week of June 12th. A lot of the equipment is actually fenced in out on the playground, and the only obstacle we've encountered so far are the random footballs or soccer balls that happen to go in there. And the kids have been really patient. I just say, you know, we'll wait till there's a few more and I'll go in and get them. But other than that, it's been not a problem out there at all. June 19th through the 23rd, they have it scheduled for the curb to be installed. And you might recall that you went with the cement curb. And then June 26th and 30th, they will actually finish installing the equipment. And then keep in mind, if you remember the preschool playground, they dig out the ground, they install the equipment, and then after that, the surface will be laid. Of course, that's all contingent upon rain, weather, but they are very committed to getting that playground done and actually ready for us to do a grand opening sometime this summer already. Number 6 on my agenda is we have so many events coming. I did want to call special attention to a few of them. If you happen to be in the area, on May 18th, our 4th grade state project presentations, and that'll be in the auxiliary gym. So you're definitely invited to pop in if you have time. Our wax museum for 5th grade will be on May 23rd, also in the auxiliary gym. And then of course our annual fun day is on May 25th. So lots of things happening, as you can see from our May events. Any questions? Feel free to share the summer link with anyone that you think maybe did receive that. That was sent out to parents via JMC and then also on our Seesaw program as well. And like I said, we've been making a lot of phone calls and reaching out even through Upper Sioux, and also through the county agency across the street has also been helping us with some of that, so. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dawn, you ready to take over?
Sure. Thank you. Just so you know, we were up 2-1. It was very tight in 5th inning. All right, so Mrs. Anderson, sorry.
All right, so at the middle school, high school, well, first I'll just do a prom recap. That just happened this last weekend. And even though it started with some rain for the drive-up portion, it was really fun to see all the students dressed up and having a good time. I believe it was a great success. You know, I saw lots of students with smiles and laughing and making great memories, you know, at the dinner and dance and all that kind of stuff. So it was really fun to see them make those lifelong memories that will stay with them with their friends and classmates. Thanks to both Tammy Eisfeld and Miss Wall, Abby, thank you, Abby Wall, for their hard work and their organization and setting that all up and all that, the details that go in. It's a lot of work, so they did a lot of good work. MCAA testing update. We have completed our math and reading testing, and we are completing our science this week. We started it today and are hoping to be done by Wednesday, but we'll, you know, keep plugging away on Thursday if need be. We have band and choir concerts coming up. We have band concert on May 12th for grades 7 through 12. Our choir concert on May 19th for grades 7 through 12. And then both the band and choir for 6th grade will be on May 25th. We have the MRV CTEC class orientation for fall classes happening on May 17th at Midwest Campus. We have students that enrolled in the welding program and the Intro to Health Careers classes that they'll be going for. We have 5th grade orientation. They'll be coming over to our middle school building on May 19th. Students will spend some time touring the building and attending various middle school classes. They'll have lunch with a few of us adults as well in the little theater. So it'll be fun to see their faces and see them in the building to give them kind of that fresh first time. Sure they'll have some big eyes with the difference. Our 6th graders completed a older American essay project. They were asked to write an essay on someone who is older that they look up to. The essays were then submitted to the senior advisory board, who then selected 2 students to read at the Older American Banquet that is taking place on May 18th. And the 2 students that were selected were Grace Gerton and Evie Jimenez. So nice work to those gals, and good luck on their reading of their essays. 11th graders will be having a presentation, a Marines presentation on May 24th. Field trips, one has already taken place. It happened last Friday, the Fag and Fighters Museum. They had actually scheduled that for earlier this year, but it ended up getting canceled due to weather, I believe it was. But they were able to go this last Friday, and it was phenomenal. Heard lots of great reports from that. Upcoming ones are 6th graders again, and they will be going to the Minnesota State Capitol on May 17th. Our Indian Education Student Representative Committee selected to go to the All My Relations Art Gallery in Minneapolis for a field trip, and there is a sign-up sheet for those that are interested in attending. Our Science Club planned to go to the Minnesota Zoo on May 24th. And our 7th grade class will be going to a Wilmer Stinger baseball game on May 31st. Summer school information. Next 2 items aren't on my report, but I will talk about them. Summer school information. I was hoping to already have that out, but it should be going out tomorrow. And so that'll list the different offerings that we have. I'm not going to list them all, but there's a couple art options. There's things, intro to gardening. There's welding. There's going to Matilda for a day, or for an evening play in Wilmer. Mr. Woodford's going to do a day on a dairy farm. So there's a list of them on there that students are able to sign up for. They range from anywhere from a day to maybe 3 days to 6 days type of activities going on. E-learning surveys have been sent out to staff, students, and parents. So we have, as a leadership team, we've met once so far, some of those results, but there's still more to do, so we will be continuing to review those results and work on any changes that we believe need to be made. And then seniors, lots going on in the coming days for our seniors. So the graduation cap decoration pre-approval process, just to cover that quick. Seniors who plan to decorate their cap will be asked to fill out a form by May 15th. It's just going to ask them to describe what it is that or how they intend to decorate their cap, and they can, submit a drawing or picture if they prefer. And then just a brief, or a description of how does this decoration celebrate or recognize their culture, traditions, or heritage. There'll be a committee that reviews them, and then approvals will be made by May 22nd. And their students will be informed by May 22nd for that. Lions Club Honors Banquet is May 10th at 7 p.m. That's in 2 days. Time's flying, people. Baccalaureate, May 17th at 6:30. The SYME Scholarship Banquet, May 21st at 2 p.m. The Minnesota Honor Society Induction Ceremony, May 24th at 2 p.m. Graduation Practice and Picture, June 1st at 8:15 a.m. And all seniors are required to attend this. Awards and Award Ceremony, June 1st at 11 a.m. And graduation ceremony on June 2nd at 7 p.m. Wow, that's a lot. But our seniors have worked hard for many years, and so I'm excited for them to have all these different activities going on. I also just want to give a big thanks to Steve, Terry, Barb, and Carrie for all their hard work and dedication over the years that they've given the YME Middle School, High School building, and wish them all the very best in their retirement. And I also wanted to thank, and I might be missing somebody, but I know that Shelley and Amy have been stepping in at the high school building, helping all our custodial staff to cover some shortages the last few weeks. So I just want to recognize them and hope I'm not missing somebody. I apologize, but I know for sure them I've seen them around. So that is all. Any questions?
That's nice that people are stepping up, because we've struggled to find those extra positions, so thank you to them too from us. Can you just talk about summer school for a second?
Yeah.
I'm curious again, remind us, is it just in June, is it just the 2 weeks
So-
in June? And how does it work if a child has, do they go the whole 2 weeks, or do they just go till they've got their section cut? Can you just-
So you're talking about credit. So the summer school offerings, the credit recovery is in there. I think that's maybe what you're gearing towards
Maybe
most.
that's where it is.
And
yeah.
so I believe most of the students that are gonna be doing credit recovery have kind of already signed up, because there's that, they've signed forms and things like that, but that will start, and that's a 6-week program. And that's essentially, they go until they finish their packet. So I know, I was told last year, there were some that they came for 3 days, because that's what they needed to finish what they needed to finish. Others have come for, a couple weeks. It also is kind of open to, time-wise. It starts at 8 and goes till 3, for credit recovery. But if you can only come in the mornings, that's fine. If you can only come in the afternoons, that's fine. Did I answer all your questions for credit recovery? I feel like I might have missed something.
I think you covered it, and then does, who's teaching, are they coming here, and
Yep, so
what's
the-
staff,
yeah.
different staff doing it, or certain staff doing it?
Yep, so it'll be the same staff as last year, Christy and Berta,
Mhm.
and it'll be in the media center. And it will run for 6 weeks, so starting, that first week in June there, I believe on the 7th, the Wednesday, the 7th. And then, they will take that week of July 4th off, but otherwise they'll continue, after that week, for credit recovery. And then all the other, offerings that they'll see on there, those are, it's whatever the student chooses to, participate in, and it will list, what days they're on and the time frame. Most of them, I think, are about a 2-hour, session. So like, one of them's, woodworking, carving, that's a 3-day thing, meeting 2 hours each day. So yeah, other questions for the summer program?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, and I believe that is, we're up to Mr. Schneider.
Okay, good evening. So we have done some hiring over the last month. As you can see from my report, Haley DeGleek was hired as our elementary teacher. And then we do have an MDCC special education director. I believe that was approved tonight at your board meeting, correct?
Yes.
So Angela Young goes by Angie Young. So, and then we will ask Cindy Lowe, who knows a little bit about MDCC, to help us out and mentor her. So,
That's nice.
yeah, so that's a win. So, that's great news for us. Angie's got some big shoes to fill. Well, Nicole's not very big, but big shoes to fill. It's tough. This is, special education director is a tough spot because you're expected to know quite a bit. So, they really do a lot for our district, so. Sale of playground equipment, so we're at a whopping, when I looked here about an hour ago, $232 for the largest thing, and $23 for the swings. But what they tell me is it comes down to kind of the last day, and then things just, people just start watching it and keep it. So, did get inquiry from a city on the big playground equipment. I have no idea what it'll go for. The biggest thing is we need it out there so we can get our new stuff on it. So. The ALC, so we talked a little bit, or maybe we used to use a program for credit recovery called the Packet program. And so I'm not going to blame anyone other than the superintendents for this change. We're going to suspend that program to try and bring some rigor to it. The problem is a kiddo, actually, it's not just credit recovery, they can get original credit for that. They were able to do that maybe in a weekend and get a half a credit. The rigor wasn't there, and so people were getting to, say, semester time in their senior year, they just want to go to the workforce. And so they're dropping out quickly and getting into the Packet program. So we've requested that they suspend that, and we'll take a look at it and try and add a little bit more rigor to that program. So.
Rich, when you say superintendents, this is a regional thing that you guys?
Yeah, there's really only 4 schools that utilize it: Montevideo, us, the ALC, and Lacaparo. Is Dawson Boyd part of it too? Yeah, Dawson Boyd, I think, is part of it too. So, it's kind of a MERVED thing, but not all the MERVED schools participate in it. RCW
All the
does.
schools are putting it on pause?
What's that?
All of the schools are putting it on pause?
Yeah, actually, so the program originates from the ALC.
Mhm.
And so it's part of what's called an ALP, an Alternative Learning Program, and that's a component of that.
Okay.
It's not just that we wanted to suspend it, but there were some questions by MDE that caused us to start changing some things, and we just need to reassess it and see where it's at. Credit for learning is our policy that we have, which kind of governs that. So we want to, and all of the schools have that same policy. We wanted to align a little bit better to that, to put a little rigor back in there. I'm not talking calculus here, but we're talking kiddos without exaggeration, over a weekend, could complete a packet, right? And to be quite frank with you, I don't even know if the students themselves were always doing it, because we have no evidence of that, so.
So this is the program, not the credit recovery, these are.
It can be used for credit
The
recovery.
students are like truly doing that independent study, they're not enrolled here, they're enrolled at the ALC, and they're doing this packet and then choosing to graduate from either their home district or a different district.
Yeah, the home district or the ALC is your 2 choices.
Okay, yep. So the students that are behind, that are at the ALC this year,
Yeah, and this will actually run anybody in there all the way through next year. We're just not gonna take any
any
new
new
ones
ones, so the
or
ones that maybe
underclassmen.
are juniors can finish their senior year.
If they're already in it,
If they're
yes.
already in it, yep, makes sense.
Yep, and it won't impact this summer, so. We're getting quotes for both transportation and for copier. We did have A&B come through and do an analysis, and they did give us a quote. We'll actually use that as a template then to push out to a couple other copier things, or copier companies. We have the option in the bid law and contracts for you to allow me to sign that bid. The reason, or that quote, the reason I would suggest that is if we wait too long to approve that, we might not get those machines, and things might be a little interrupted next year. So, just the timing of things. Questions about the copier quotes? I think Jeremy pushed out to 3 other companies today, and we'll look at a 4th one tomorrow with Loeffler. So, try and get those out to you.
So when would you intend to have a contract signed?
Probably in the next couple of weeks. So, my fear is if I wait till the June board meeting, that, because it's going to take a while to get those machines in, so, and then to get them installed. Transportation quotes, as I said, we'll probably have to advertise for quotes. What that means is they submit some numbers and then we go into negotiations with them. I'm sure we're only gonna get 1 quote, so.
I was gonna say, do we get other quotes or other
No.
than the one? Okay.
Last time we did it, we were just with Bennett's, and so you can negotiate. So you're not bound by those quotes, so. We're looking at the possibility of a full-time substitute for next year. What that would be is that would be someone that would be paid at the daily rate of a step 1, but would only be student contact days. The advantage of this is, it is next to impossible to find this up. A lot of schools are starting to go to this, and it's paid less than a full-time teacher. There's less prep on it. There's 13 less days on it. Any snow days or days where it's canceled for any reason, either virtual or real, the traditional snow days, they aren't paid. Questions about that?
I think we've been talking about this on and on for a while, I think, remember it?
Yeah, so my thing is I'd probably go ahead and start advertising, and then, just like some of the other proposals, you'll have a chance when we approve it in June to say yea or nay, so.
Is this
That
for
makes
K through 12 or is it through certain?
Yep, K through 12.
Just one to cover both buildings.
Yep, they take the first substitute we need that day. So, and if we know somebody has a surgery and it's gonna be gone for 5 days, we probably plug them in there. Yeah, I don't know that we'll get anybody, but it's an option for us. We do have some committee meetings coming up, just as a reminder. Finance Committee will be Wednesday night, Policy Committee on the 24th, and Buildings and Grounds. We did not schedule another one, but we had one in the beginning of the year, at the end of April. Do you want another Buildings and Grounds? It's you 3, so. Not that you want to put more things on your calendar. Next week is baccalaureate, so it probably would have to be the first Wednesday in June.
I feel like if we wait too long, we're gonna get lost in.
But we've got some things approved, right?
Right.
That we already, so we'll get those going. But you're right, some of those things that we left dangling are gonna stay dangling until.
Because we were still waiting for some quotes to come in for the LTFM capital budget.
Yeah, sorry, got too much in my head.
I would say, might as well go for it. So June 7th.
Will that work for everyone?
You're saying for Buildings and Grounds, everyone.
Yeah.
Just clarifying, just making sure.
When were you thinking about negotiations? I know that's coming up.
The first 2 weeks of June, so if we pick June 7th, obviously that wouldn't be one of the days.
I'm good with that,
June 7th, or? Okay. We'll get that on your calendars. Dates for negotiations now within the first 2 weeks. There's some dates that will work in the first 2 weeks of June there. First Monday is what, June 5th, then June 6th. 8th, I'm gonna guess you don't wanna do it on a Friday night.
About 14.
The 14th, June 14th.
I was gonna say right the fifth. That's probably too soon.
It'd be nice to pick a few dates.
The fifth is a Monday, we don't have a school board meeting, there isn't,
I don't know, like softball playoffs, I don't know
I'm
what these
looking
sports
here.
are out.
to see where they're all at,
Only day that does not work for me is the
the day that we did that.
8th, Thursday.
Give me 2 seconds to pull up the. What did we say? We said the 14th?
We talked about the 5th and the 14th.
Yeah.
Both the 5th and the 14th?
I don't know, that's just what was mentioned.
Berta, does PAC meet in the summer? I can't remember.
No, we're done.
We're done, okay. So the 14th, that would be the second one, so.
June 5th and 14th? Does it show on there?
14th is
June?
fine, June 5th. Next day, so Monday's probably an option.
June 5th, there's nothing on there for June 5th.
No,
Unless there's softball teams and playoffs.
does it say that? Cause like
Wouldn't it be on
boys,
there?
boys playoffs
Well-
sections is the next day. I was looking for softball playoffs, but it could
Because
be.
Super Saturday would be the Saturday before Memorial Day, is it not? Is that not the first, that'd be the second round?
That would be the following Saturday, right?
It'd be the 28th of
May.
May. And then, you're probably right. We can schedule it. I'm
Okay.
Sure, we're okay.
Okay,
You
June 5th and 14th. That would be
Tuesday,
one
May,
option.
Tuesday, May 30th at 5 p.m. is softball girls varsity section finals. Does that help? I think it's the week,
I think it works.
so the 5th and the 14th, is that where we're potentially?
First preference would be the 14th. Would be mine, so, not that it matters.
Okay,
Not that I've had it.
all right. And as you know, the reason we can't go forward yet is the legislature's not done. It's, our ability to influence, is a little bit less now than it was before. Now that they're in committee, they're kinda, it's tough to crack that egg, to get in there and get them to listen to us, but, so graduation, I believe Crystal will send something out about graduation, but graduation starts at 7, so I think we normally meet at 6:30 in Leah's office up there, the old high school office, so, all right.
We will even.
Survey update, I know this is not on there, but, that survey closes May 15th. So far, this morning, we have 437 surveys back, so
Great, good.
that's good. So, and then once it closes, so they'll send out at least one more reminder, but,
And when does that close again?
15th. So, track update. Got bad news.
No,
We're not gonna be able to save that track. We're still working on it, but, so we canceled, we were supposed to host the Camden Conference next week,
No.
and, we're not going to. It's just too big a safety risk. Bubbles are getting big. Yeah, the base is just gone.
Did the repairs from last year, did it go up again?
Well, the ones that took us the most time are holding on good. Then we had a couple leaks. When did we host the track meet? Last Tuesday? So we had a couple bad ones last Tuesday, so they tried slicing them and putting blackjack in it. That didn't work, they just popped back up further out, just spread further. So, you know, it's
So it's actually
unfortunate.
like vapor, you said, that's getting in there?
Yeah, because it's from the base up.
Yeah.
So we're gonna need to replace the whole thing, correct? So what's the next step on that?
We'll get some
Quotes?
so we don't have the money.
I just remember it's very, very expensive, I remember.
As we talked about this, yeah.
So, and then Tim had actually talked to me about sixth grade sports and stuff like that, so if you folks would like, we can have a discussion item on that for next month.
Sure.
Um, you did a nice job. Presented well.
Yep.
I understand everything people say. Yep. Okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Schneider? All right, we sort of jumped in a little bit in his report about buildings and grounds, but there's,
We canceled the meeting, so there wasn't waiting.
you cancel it, so it's not even.
Actually, had we ever put the last one on there? Yeah, we did.
Because we reported on that.
Okay,
Okay, so you
great,
didn't have another one.
fantastic.
All right, I believe we're up to Berta. Hey. Come join us.
Still a bit nervous after all these years. Good evening. I want to begin by saying that I'm very thankful to the Native American parents that have entrusted me with their children for a portion of their day at Wyoming. They truly are a gift to me. I treasure our profound conversations, the laughter we share, and the grace they show me when I continue, even after all of these years, to mess up. I would like to thank you as the school board for allowing me the opportunity for employment at Yellow Medicine East Independent School District 2190. I want to acknowledge that YME is placed upon and named after the ancestral and traditional homeland of the Dakota people. I honor the Pajutá Zizi Oyate and other indigenous caretakers of these lands and waters, the elders who lived here before, the indigenous today, and the generations to come. I'm assuming that you all have all received the report or have had some time to look at it, so I don't feel like I have to go point by point by point, but if we do, that's fine too. The first part of the report is always about the three forms of funding that we have at YME. The most notable is that impact aid is reducing or going down substantially year after year, and that is because we don't qualify any longer for impact aid. So if you notice that, that's a concern. And that's the one where we count federally connected children. And so there's just fewer and fewer students that live on federal property or whose parents are employed on federal property. Any questions about funding? Do I have to go through each? Okay. Each year, Title VI requires the district to assess if it's meeting the needs of the Native American students within the district. The federal government asks the district to assess the academic achievement and participation of Native American students in relation to non-Native students. So that's basically what all of these statistics are about, is that request from the federal government. So our population in March was 17% Native students. When I do this report for the public meeting that most of the Upper Sioux community members attend, they like to find out kind of the percentage of Upper Sioux members versus non-Upper Sioux members. So that's that statistic there. 69% of our Native population at YME are Upper Sioux community members. The academics that I have listed out here, I wrote that it was just the A and B honor roll, but of course that includes the superior honor roll as well for each of the quarters. So I was wishing kind of that we would bump those up a little bit, 6%, 4%, 6%, so those numbers could obviously increase. Our MCA scores, the Area Learning Center, I guess I had a question for you, Mr. Schneider, when you were talking about the credit recovery piece. Obviously, we have a lot of natives, when we look at this statistic, a lot of natives in credit recovery, and you'll see the other credit recovery statistic further into the report as well. When you were mentioning the credit recovery, and you were talking about the kids enrolled in the independent learning versus dually enrolled, so are you saying that the credit recovery for those students that are receiving packets that are doing credit recovery, even though they're enrolled at YME, you still want that packet to look differently? So I think when Don asked, and you answered that they were enrolled at the ALC, there are some students that are dually enrolled, right?
They are duly enrolled. The only way you can get access to the packets is through the ALC, through their program.
Mhm.
Right? So we get that extended time for them.
So there are some students that are in credit recovery that are also attending YME. Does that make sense?
Yes,
Yes.
and that's what I thought,
Okay.
but I knew that there was some completely, so the
Yes.
credit recovery is continuing
For one more year.
for one more year.
Okay.
There will be something.
I mean, we're gonna find a plan, right?
And
That was my
anybody
concern further.
enrolled in it now through next year is, yep. But we do have to, yep. There's a couple reasons. One of them is that speedy credit earning, which is not truly credit recovery.
Mhm,
That's initial credit,
mhm,
right? That's what most,
mhm.
and so the state is saying you can't do it that way, even though they're putting together a work group to deal with that right now.
Right, so there still will be, I think where Berta's getting to is that when you said they'll be referred back to their home districts to work with the district on a plan, right? So the kids are still gonna need credit recovery.
Correct.
That looks, it's just gonna look different and that's gonna still be developed.
Yep, and we can right now offer credit recovery to our own kiddos. In fact, Gina, I think if I'm not mistaken, aren't there some English students taking some credit recovery through our own English teachers?
They have that option, yes.
Great,
And so that wouldn't be under the ALC.
thanks for clarifying that, Berta.
Yeah. Well, and I know that there's some changes just, coming to the independent learning as well, and ALC itself, like the number of seats available and things like that that have been discussing with the students as well. It's just, yeah, it's a little bit scary when, half of the students that attend the ALC from YME are native. It's just a little bit scary, so I'm hoping that we'll put together a good program for our credit recovery kids, so that we, get that looked at, taken care of. We do, we have a high percent here. The total number of native students in grades 9 through 12 is 32, and 18 of those are having to do some sort of credit recovery. That's half of our native population that are needing to do credit recovery, and I think that's a disservice to our population, that they need to be recovering credit. I don't know, something that I think we have to look at. Our special education numbers, these have been fairly consistent throughout the years, even though they're high. It was something that's been brought up by our parent advisory committee, and again, at the public meeting when I gave it on the 3rd, some parents, it was a discussion that was had that evening as well. It continues to be kind of a concern. Our PSEO numbers, obviously our intro to Indigenous Nations was the college credit, or the PSEO course that a lot of our Indigenous students took. And so that was kind of fun to see that. 13 out of the 14 were Native students. Some of the other PSEO offerings weren't as popular amongst the Native students as was the Intro to Indigenous Nations class. Other activities, I see the prom committee kind of gathered a few more students than the others, so that was kind of fun. You can take a look at the band and choir numbers. Our athletics, 16% of the population is Native that's participating in sports, so that's pretty close to our 17% population, so that's kind of fun to see that. I kind of broke all that down for you. If you look at the total number of students in grades 7 through 12, there's 60 and 34 of those are participating. That's a good chunk of our Native students that are participating in the sport. I just kind of broke it down by grades so you can kind of see which grades are participating, so that makes it, most of them are participating in boys basketball and then boys and girls track. Our elementary numbers follow that. When we get into the other areas of our, of my report, RARG, which is your attendance review, or your truancy in attendance, we had quite a few go to the, quite a few attendance referrals for RARG that are of Native American descent. So we had 8 referrals to RARG, 6 were of Native American descent, so that's 75%. And that's another statistic that we look at year after year after year, our attendance ratios, I guess is probably a good word to say it. We have attendance concerns with the population of students that I service. I had to update the, I don't know if you looked at the board report earlier, but I had an error in the in-school suspension K through 5. I don't know if you read it before, it said 22, but it actually was 2, so we just take note of that. That was my error, so it has been fixed now. So the suspension statistics have been fixed on that page there. We continue to have our parent advisory committee and our student representative committee. We've had some community spotlight events already. And then when I talked with the public meeting, we went over the responses from the board in regards to the non-concurrence letter that was, topics that were sent from the parent advisory committee last year. And we just noted that there were many improvements that have been made. And there were still some difficulties, and most of those were like, how do you measure some of the things that were happening? So those were the kind of the difficulties, but we noted quite a few improvements. And so at the end, during the meeting, the parents did agree that improvements have been made. Was concerned that if they issued a vote of concurrence, current improvements would not be sustained and the further progress would not be made. After a great deal of dialogue amongst the members and time for consideration, the parent advisory committee issued a vote of concurrence. It is important to note that this vote is an annual occurrence and will be revisited on an annual basis. Activities and improvements made will be tracked and communicated. So some of the things that we just talked a little bit about at the meeting when the parents were there were some of the same things that I talked about. Special education continues to be talked about, and I really, when I noted in my report that that was something that was really looked at this year, and I noted a lot about that, those changes as the year went on, and the staff development that talked about special education, really looking at how YME has really taken a look at that, so the parents felt good about that. It's just still concerns about the high numbers of special ed. Some parents noted about, nice to see that Adam is still coaching. Concern about impact aid dollars, and I made note of that. A lot of concerns about students and their identity within YME, really wanting to keep who they are and a reflection of themselves. That was a big concern heard from parents the other night about that balance, that really difficult balance of keeping their native identity within this building. It's been difficult for some students. So we had some good, I wouldn't say conversation, we listened really well to, I think, some of the things that were being said that evening. We'll have to bring that back to the parent advisory committee and do some more discussion about what we can do for some, in regards to some of those things and some of those concerns that the parents had about that. Any questions about all of that, or something that you want me to more specifically get into that like I said, I didn't really want to read through everything, so.
I really like seeing the statistics. I think that was really helpful and interesting, and just to see that breakdown.
I do have them, like, yeah, from even some of the others I do have from previous years, and you can kind of see years that change, but they're pretty consistent. Mrs. Anderson talked a little bit about the art gallery we're going to go and see, but if you have a minute, you should look up, we're going to also see Marlena Miles, and she does, we're gonna go on a Dakota Spirit Walk, and so if you have some time, or, this is kind of, she does augmented reality, and we're gonna go on the walk through the sanctuary, and you hold up your cell phone, and she's done, let me see if I can find it quick. It's really cool. We want to try and do it with our art students here. Let me see if I can give you an example. So you use your phone and you go on the spirit walk, and then while you have your phone, it shows an augmented space on your phone. So we're gonna go and visit that on the same day we take our trip to the art gallery, and then we're going to, Mrs. Eisfeld said we have the equipment here, and so we're gonna maybe try and do that next year in regards to place here at Wyoming and Granite Falls area, and try and do some things like that with the students and her art students, and kind of make a collaborative, trying to do some of these kinds of things that we thought maybe would be really cool. So I just wanted to add to that.
What was her name again?
Marlena Miles. And it's called the Dakota Spirit Walk.
I will put a link in this week's update to you folks.
I think
Yeah.
we'll,
It was really interesting, I saw that, I went to that meeting, so.
Yeah, so we're kind of pumped about it. I think the kids will really enjoy it, and seems like a kind of a fun project for us for next year, so. All right, well, if you don't have any more questions, thank you for your time.
sounds good. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brett.
Alright, so, any other, I believe that covers all the reports, yes? Here, I thought I'd missed them. Moving on to new business, personnel items, we have, item 1.1 is a approval, it's a request for a .6 FTE employment, elementary teacher position, Becky Lysa. Can we talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so last month we said we would table it until we found a position. So if you look through all of these, what the intent is that we can honor the .6. But before she gets to start the .6, she's going to be a long-term sub to try and fill out that long-term sub position. So she is willing to do that. She is currently second grade teacher, so it's a natural fit for her. For the other teacher who has FMLA leave next fall.
So this approval is for the upcoming school year,
Correct.
and it's a one-year approval? Or is this an ongoing? Because I think we
It
talked
would
about
be.
that last month, you know, it was more about if there was a position or an opportunity for that.
Well, I know by the contract, they can't bump into full-time, so, you know what I mean? If we cut, whatever. If we cut 1.0, she can't bump, nobody can bump her. She doesn't lose her seniority in this position. But at this point, it's 0.6 going forward until we make a change.
Okay. And you feel that that will work and will have that need
Yes,
to not have the 1.0?
to not have the 1.0. In the future, we may, but I think it'll all work out.
What other questions do we have that are unclear, like, it seems like it's developed since our last meeting.
Correct,
To
it
much
did.
more, okay.
Yep.
All right, well, we can entertain a motion if people don't have questions. Sounds like it's being presented that a 0.6 FTE position.
So after September, October, what would her hours or what would that
It'll
look
be
like?
0.6, it may be 3 or maybe 4 days a week.
Okay,
So if it's 4, we'll shorten the days to get to 0.6.
okay.
Does that make sense?
And we should just be in a certain grade
No,
or floating?
it would be a title position.
It's a temp position. That's, okay. Other questions?
Do you need a motion?
I need a motion if we are going to move forward.
I'll make a motion
To approve a
to
point.
approve a 0.6 long-term elementary substitute teacher.
That's a 0.6 FTE.
0.6 FTE.
After completion of the long-term sub. It's all kind of tied together.
After completion of the long-term sub.
Because she'll first do that,
And then after
and then
that.
it'll be 0.6, if we're understanding it correctly. There is a motion on the table, is there a second?
Amanda, see you in a second.
Further discussion or questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Leave requests. And resignations, actually, it's resignations this time. May we take them all together?
Yeah, just remember the last one's retirement.
Oh, yep, sorry. So items 2.1, 2, and 3 are resignations. Early childhood preschool teacher Jill Stark. Been in this position for a long time, certainly will be missed in this position. I hear good things about Ms. Stark. Assistant boys basketball coach Dylan Lindstrom and assistant varsity football coach Mr. Ryan Schultz. Is there a motion to accept those resignations?
Motion by the board to accept.
Is there a second?
Second by Zumpo.
Questions or further discussion? I assume Mr. Knapper is probably looking for replacement.
Yeah, I think he probably has candidates for one.
Okay. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Item, leave request and resignation, number 4 is the retirement of BRE librarian and paraprofessional Carolyn Olson. How long has she been at the?
Dawn, if I may just, I wanna first of all thank her for all of her years.
Yes.
I did look up her time, and actually she started in '98, which was the year I came as a teacher.
Yeah.
She has survived many principals since that time.
Survived.
You know, her
Survived,
primary
yeah.
role has been in the library. She's been instrumental in helping us, basically, you know, we did a lot of things in the library in the last 9-10 years. She will be missed.
Instrumental in all those book fairs.
Oh, yes.
Kids would get all
And boy, do
excited
we have
about.
stories about that. Yes, yes, we've shared a lot. Yes, but thank you to her for all of her years.
Well, we would like to recognize her as well, and her dedication to our school district and all the lives that she has touched, and wish her well. So is there a motion to accept her retirement, because she probably deserves to retire?
Amanda Lucian, that motion.
Is there a second?
Ron Winter, second.
Further questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. New hires, we have, elementary teacher, Haley DeBlee. Should we take these one by one, or?
You can take them as a group.
Okay, Haley DeBeek will be coming in and teaching elementary grade, 2. Great to have her back in the district, having been from here. Approval of employment long-term elementary substitutes, from September to October, Becky Lyseth, which is what we had talked about, and long-term substitute November, December, Trish Jesslyn, and they're splitting that, right, that long-term sub. Yep. So a motion to approve those employments, 1, 2, and 3.
Motion by LeBlanc to approve these requirements.
Second?
I'll second Laurel Christensen.
Thank you. Any further questions, discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion is carried. That moves us on to the revised budget.
So I'm just gonna hit on a few things. For the most part, food service, we're not changing the budget. Community ed is not changing. Debt service, that's what's gonna all stay the same. OPEB, so OPEB, our fund balance is going to run out at the end of this year. So we're gonna have, if you look to the other side, the preliminary, there's about $57,000 under projected fund balance. So going over to the revised side, I zeroed that out because we're gonna have to borrow from the general fund at the end of the year to cover that. So OPEB will have to, going forward, do as a pay-as-you-go to levy for those post-employment benefits. So I zeroed that amount out and that got added back up into the general fund.
Just for clarification, we can levy for OPEB, so this won't be a hit on our general fund. We just got a 1 year we
Yeah,
borrow
so for
against the
this
general.
fiscal year, we're just gonna have the expense. Next fiscal year, we'll have a revenue with an expense. So under general fund, that highlighted blue amount is kind of the amount we're looking at. That's our unreserved deficit. So what we projected at the beginning of the year was 242,000 for projected deficit. We've got that to about $18,000 at the end of this fiscal year. So some of the bigger changes there, interest rates have gone up on our balances. So we've gone from about $3,000 projected revenue to about $150,000 this year. So an increase of about $147,000 of interest money. The state calculation, it looks like we're gonna be bringing in about $41,000 more. So that brought down that deficit. We, looking at kind of staffing changes with MVCC, we are gonna be dropping our last payment about $100,000 to them, so that has helped that deficit also. And then,
That arose as a result of our inability to hire a special ed teacher.
and then a little bit that plays into that is we had to add that $57,000, so it kind of all washes down to that $18,000 So if you're looking at the grand total at the bottom, originally, with all funds, we were looking at $470,000 deficit. That's down to $234,000 for fiscal year '23. And there's still a lot of moving parts. Like Leanne has always said, a lot of the budgets for like supplies and stuff, those always come in under budget. So that number should still go down a little bit.
You said 234,000, the one we have here says 207, was there a change from personal guard?
Oh, yep, I updated at the end of the day.
Yeah, I was like, mine says 207, but I believe you. Just like-
There was a $27,000 double amount that I had to
Oh.
fix, so. But yes, we're looking at about 234,000 amongst all the funds.
So there was quite a big revenue increase in the student activities. What was the result? How did we gain so much there? Revenue?
I think some of that, there was donations, and I think we brought in a little bit more in activity fees this year than COVID years. So I had originally budgeted off of some of the COVID years. Any questions? We're gonna still work at getting that more.
I mean, it's still nice to see a significant improvement in that,
So this is the revised budget, of course, we'll wait and do the final budget later. But this is an action item for approval.
Oh, and I guess the other thing, that LTFM amount, we kinda knew we were gonna deficit spend up there, so that's the end, the fund balance will be about 120,000 negative. We know we can borrow kind of against and do that next year.
In the pool, that's Clark Field pool,
Correct, yeah.
which is the most confusing thing, but it basically passes through us.
Right, but we can end that as well as a board, that agreement.
We could, yeah.
And that we levy for all those
And levy
expenses.
for those expenses.
Just on the Clark Field School District,
Yeah, the original.
the former Clark Field School District.
Okay. All right, other questions? Otherwise, we are looking for a motion to approve the revised fiscal year '23 budget.
I'll make that motion to approve the fiscal year '23 budget.
Is there a second?
Second by Zumbo.
Further questions, comments? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Thank you, Jeremy. Item 3 is approval to provide payroll and accounting services to MVCC for the 2023-24 school year. I believe this is an annual thing. You wanna have, do you have any comments on it, or is it just pretty?
No, it's just, we have to do it every year.
Yep.
And it helps us offset some of the expenses.
Right. So, motion to approve that?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Further questions? Comments? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Item 4 is the approval to purchase special ed services from MVCC for 2023-24 school year. Again, I believe this is an annual thing. For a motion to approve?
Motion by LeBlanc to approve.
Second?
Second by Zumbo.
Any further questions or discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. That leads us to policy updates.
Well, one thing, when we did our audit last year, we found that we needed, we had a procurement policy, but it's insufficient to especially cover our federal dollars. And so the normal process is for this policy to go through our policy committee. We would not have sufficient time to do that, so I'm going to ask that you do a first reading tonight. This will give you a month to review it, ask me questions, and then a second reading in June. So that's completed in this fiscal year for federal purposes.
And really the major difference is you kind of proposed that limit change, right?
Correct, and that's, actually, it's in Minnesota statute.
Yeah, it's just to make it the same standard as Minnesota. And it'll be something that we'll have to reapprove every year
Right,
to have that.
it would be an annual one too. Okay.
And this is using this MSBA policy, not our own developed policy, so it'll be.
Yeah, we threw that other one together to get something out there.
Right.
Mhm.
So what's the definition of a micro purchase?
Is it
Great
not in there?
question.
Or is this a quiz?
I just don't know, so I'm asking.
Even your understanding about a micro purchase.
It's gotta be $1 amount, isn't it?
Well, it says micro purchase threshold of $25,000, so
Would you guess that's what a micro purchase is?
It's just a smaller purchase.
Is that procurement by micro purchase is acquisition?
I mean, right in the definition, it talks about 250,000 for the simplified acquisition and a micro purchase being 10,000, so it changed that, but it might be something, it's just a smaller purchase.
so would that be for all of our purchases then?
And we do have a policy committee coming up that we could discuss this between now and the next board meeting before the final reading.
We'll find that out.
I guess what type of a purchase is a micro purchase? Is it all things over that amount, or is it in certain categories of things?
Yeah, because you look at, say, the copier.
Well, they have right here in that one language, acceptable reasons for justification must meet one of the following criteria. One, a qualification as a low-risk oddity in accordance with the criteria established in 2 Code of Federal Regulations. And 2, was an annual internal institutional risk assessment to identify, mitigate, and manage financial risk for 3 higher threshold consistent with state law. So that is clearly very clear.
That's a lot of accountant speak. I don't know.
So maybe we'll talk about it at policy and you can get a little more clarification to share. Is that
Okay.
be all right?
Yeah.
I mean, I read through it too, but it doesn't really.
And that's May 24th, so if you have questions, you can get them in the group before then.
It was the 24th, right?
Yes, it was.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll count that as our first reading tonight. Everyone's comfortable with that, so we can kind of get in line this fiscal year with that? Okay?
And that's for auditing purposes too, we need to get this fiscal year, not next.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we had to submit a plan of action because of it.
And then policy, this was an approval of the update, policy 620, credit for learning.
Correct. That was one that we actually had reviewed and it just got missed when I was looking through the policy committee minutes. That's one I caught that we had missed, so this is for approval.
Questions anyone might have on that policy? If not, we're looking for a motion to approve that update to policy 620.
Motion by LeBlanc to approve policy 620.
Second by Zumbo.
Any further questions or discussion? All in favor say aye.
All right.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. That leads us to a couple discussion items. The first one being the discussion we kind of started last month about dean of students. So let's discuss that. We were missing a couple board members and felt like it would be helpful to all of us to hear about it.
So, the advantage that we have right now is we have some extra dollars that we could spend on this. And the need is derived from, higher frequency of discipline and level of discipline. That we're starting to see at the high school, and middle school. So I guess like last time we talked, this is an option for us to try and go forward and provide some support here in the middle school and high school, and maybe curb some of that behavior, give some more attention to some of those issues that would then allow Ms. Anderson to spend some time in a instructional leadership role instead of just a disciplinary.
So let's just kind of talk it through. So it would be ESSER dollars, and your thought was that this would be an internal position, more than likely, but it could be external, I suppose.
It could be. We did take it down. I believe we only had one applicant at that time. Denise, is that right? Do you recall? Yeah, we had one external applicant at that point. We have one internal applicant.
So if we did this, and it was an internal staff person that wished to be in this role, they would maintain their ability if we only tried it for 1 year because of the ESSER dollars to go back to their position.
Yeah,
Right,
if
we
cut it.
chose not to continue it, or we may find that it was extremely, like, turn the corner.
Yeah. We'd have 1 year to fund it out of ESSER dollars.
Do we know what the
Cost
cost would be?
can vary depending, but I'm gonna guess 80 to 90,000. Depends upon how many extra days you add into the contract.
So hypothetically, if we filled this internally, this only for a year, would we then have to backfill our position, or could we go without that position for a year?
I would think we need to backfill the position. The person that's applied, we would still need an option for that class.
And then we would still be hiring somebody for 1 year regardless, assuming we couldn't afford it or it didn't work out.
Yeah, and even though we choose to go forward, we still, and I hope, that's why I said last month too, we still have to fill the position, and we still have to fill that other position.
It wouldn't happen if we couldn't.
Yeah, there's not a glut of candidates out there.
I think that we were all hearing things. I think, in speaking to a few people between meetings and Ms. Anderson, and there is a problem at the middle school, high school. Kids should be here to learn, and there's a lot of other things that are going on. And unfortunately, Ms. Anderson can't be everywhere and do everything, and it's also trickling over to Mr. Schneider. And I feel like this might be an opportunity to see if this could work. Yeah, I know we're all really careful about the budget, so this is an opportunity, because there are some ESSER dollars, to think about, do we want to try it, to see if we can turn the tide and create some new things, relationships, or, what do you see the person doing again? Could you just recap that?
Yeah, a lot of the discipline side of things. So like right now, it's pretty difficult to do things like supervise the lunchroom for both lunches. It's pretty difficult when you're constantly putting out fires to get down there during that time. Ms. Anderson, I believe, feel free to
Right.
charming you too.
And I do think having the administrator type role around in those types of spots help to prevent behaviors. And so just being able to have more visibility in that aspect. In addition to hopefully, this person and I could develop some type of a system for preventative or some type of a program that we would be working with specifically kind of with that middle school age level that helps try to have more of that positive behavior reinforcement as well.
How could this play into, because it's more than just discipline, so how could it play into like attendance? Like we missed the bus, or we've been skipping and parents are at work and they don't have the resources. Is that something that you see this position helping with?
Yeah, I definitely think that, we do have an attendance issue as well, high numbers of attendance issues. And so, and part of that is trying to connect with parents and have meetings with parents, once they get to that certain part. So I mean, that would be a component as well to assist with some of those issues. I think, we have, I guess I don't have the exact number of the, anything over 10 essentially is kind of like our high risk. And I mean, we've got high numbers of kids that are over 30 days of attendance. We have over 40 days, over 50, we even have some that are over 50 days that they have missed, right? So I mean, there is, that takes a lot of time, right, to meet with the students, to meet with the parents and have that communication. So that would be a big piece of the puzzle as well.
When you just look at the disciplinary data snapshot that was sent to us, and, the 4 years that, that are on the sheet, like how much it has changed every single year, it's gone up. It's not going down by any means, it's definitely increasing in different areas.
And I do want to point out too, I don't think that this is just a YME problem. I've
No.
heard that across the
No.
board at other schools as well, where discipline issues, behavior issues have gotten higher. And, it is becoming more of an issue. And I do want to kind of note, I know you saw some of those numbers, and those, essentially those are the numbers of just the suspension, right? Like, I really try to take that role of learning experience with a lot of those cases. So, for one of them in particular, that is a really low number, but really the number of kids that I've had to talk to because the rate detector has gone off, right? That started very early on in the school year. I certainly wasn't, and our discipline matrix shows, a 1-day suspension for, the first offense. But I wasn't in a spot where I felt comfortable doing that without having some education, right, and a learning experience with it. But once I start that with one person, I need to be consistent across the board as well, right? So, I just want to point out, for one of those areas, that number might look low, but the number of students I've actually talked to, which is really nice actually to see that number is low, because then that means they haven't had a second offense, right? Because had there been a second offense, maybe it would have been different. Or they maybe have had a second offense, but, nothing was found, so I, wouldn't move forward with a suspension. And all of that stuff is very time consuming, obviously, I'm sure you can understand, and, but yeah, so I mean, it's just a high number of things, and it essentially takes the whole day. So as Mr. Schneider said, to be able to try and have some of, step into those classrooms more, and I mean, just to fulfill my basic responsibility of the, we have 9 non-tenured teachers, and they have to have 3 observations each, I'm finding it very hard to be able to do those, and so just being able to have somebody that can assist allows me to do some of these other responsibilities that, I'd be able to get done.
And how would this position play with, say, the school resource officer or the school social workers? Can we just kind of talk on that? Because I know there's some limitations on those positions that, overlap, so.
Yeah. Well, with the school resource officer, you know, they usually don't, their part isn't at all related with like the discipline of stuff, right? They're there more, they're here obviously to help in a preventative sense. They're here to help when students are being, having disordered conduct and aren't even listening to me. That gives them that spot to step in, here with all the legal issues. So, I mean, the SRO is nice and assists, but they are limited in what they can actually do when it comes down to these student behaviors.
They serve as a safety.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, so they're here for safety, that's a good way to put it. And our social workers, you know, they really step in and help, you know, as much as they can too, especially when it's a lot of the, well, obviously mental health things, but when students are upset and helping them, you know, calm down and stuff like that. But again, they aren't gonna be the ones that are issuing discipline, right, or any consequences. They're in there helping with, the restorative end of things and trying to help get everybody back in a good place.
So for things like the fighting assault, the physical violence that you've listed, and then the drugs and the under the influence, what role would the school resource officer play in those? Because those feel like, to me, those are categories that fall within their wheelhouse pretty solidly.
For who
For the
specifically?
fighting assault and physical violence, we had 22 of those in
Yeah.
2022, 23.
What is the role of the
And
SRO?
we've had drugs and under the influence, so what is the role of the SRO in
Yeah.
those
So,
situations?
yeah, they're involved on the legal end of things, for sure. And,
Okay.
you know, filing reports or issuing tickets.
So are they involved in the investigation of that as well?
They can, yep, they can help, with the investigation as well, so they
But
can do cameras.
But they can, but we
But-
can't just let them handle it on their own.
But you still have to handle the
I am the one-
disciplinary
yes.
action of that, correct?
Yes, correct.
They
So
cannot handle that at all.
They can't do any of
That's on
that,
you.
correct,
Got it.
correct.
So what do you mean by they can't handle that? I understand we have to be a part of that, but couldn't we not base our suspension off of their findings? Or do we have to do something different?
We have to, we can't assume there's a violation of the law based upon our own policies. So we have to be part of that in the very beginning, all right? And then, yeah, if it's blatant, he can go forward with it, right? And we can use that information. Usually what ends up happening in the schools I've been in is you run kind of parallel investigations, or you work together on it and try and use some of the capabilities you have, meaning maybe he's got a legal way to search something and we do not, or vice versa.
I think it's, correct me if I'm wrong too, the school is a place of learning, right? And that means that kids make bad decisions, and they don't necessarily need to be charged criminally for making a bad choice. There's lots of preventative things, they might have discipline, but they may forego charges, right?
Yeah. Disorderly conduct's a great example.
Great.
We don't, every kid that doesn't comply with something, it's not disorderly conduct. But if she tells them to evacuate a room and they don't do that, that is disorderly conduct by definition.
So you're saying Bacon, the resource officer, can investigate it, correct?
He can investigate it.
So shouldn't we have a punishment in place when it comes to vaping? Okay, first time offense, we have something in place to go with it. Second time offense, he goes through it, we have the plan in place. Why do we have to keep going? I mean, we spend so much time, but I feel something should be set up that we're not wasting so much time. If it's happening that much, this kid's done it 3, 4, 5 times, we have something in place, here's the punishment, we move on. Otherwise, what are we gaining?
Still need to investigate it, because how are you gonna know it's them? Because they're gonna say, I didn't do it.
And then the parents are gonna come back and say the same thing.
I mean, there's
So
still
what
gonna
do
be.
you wanna do? How do you wanna do it? I mean,
I'm just saying
obviously,
there's still
we
gonna
know.
be an investigative level,
Totally agree.
yeah.
And we pay 69% of the resource officer at our school, which I think is awesome. But I think we could get more out of it if, and we gotta remember at the end of the day, this is an $80,000 to $100,000 position, which we talked about last time. I think if you would ask the teachers of our district, there's a lot of stuff they'd like to have too. So if we don't spend this ESSER money on this, obviously we have another place to spend it. Do I think it's important? Yes, but is there better ways to handle this? The fighting, I agree. I mean, resource officer, we have them here. When it comes to some of the fights we're hearing about, we should not have, if we're gonna spend that kind of money, we should be getting more out of our resource officer. That's what I'm
But
trying
you
to say.
can't do any of the disciplinary actions, so that's still on Jana
But let him
to
do all the investigating.
Right,
Come
but she
back
has to still
Jana.
be involved in every case though, correct?
Well, she could, but does she have to investigate the whole thing?
I mean, I don't think you are investigating the whole thing, you're just doing
Yeah,
the
so,
whole.
yeah, I mean, it,
But we're saying we're spending that much time on it, so obviously she is a part of a lot of the investigating.
But who,
but there have been times where I haven't been able to, and he'll take the, you know, he'll investigate it with the kid
Yep,
and that kind of stuff because I'm busy doing, you know, so
Yep.
there is, he does help with some of that.
so it's more than one case going on at the same time, you know, a lot of it,
Yeah.
you have a
Oh.
lot on your plate.
Yeah.
Do you think, is there any restrictions or, parameters on the investigation? If the school resource officer investigates something and the school would like it investigated for discipline, but doesn't necessarily want, like, criminal charges, is there a point of no return? Or if he investigates so far and says there's disorderly conduct? Is it, I would think that there would still be the school's decision about whether or not do we want to move forward on a legal charge in addition to discipline, or is it, if he investigates?
I don't know, I think that would be pretty gray. I think you'd have a hard time telling a police officer what they can and
Because he's
can't
still
charge.
he's still an acting police officer, so that's where there might be a point where it has to become criminal, I don't know the answer.
I don't know, I just think about the recent ones, it's usually a conversation where, I don't know, we talk to them about whether we think there's charges, but lots of times the county attorney has already been involved. So, but if there's sufficient evidence.
Well, like vaping, I mean, could be a criminal charge, but it also could be a policy, like, for smoking, and it's the same thing as smoking versus that second offense, third offense.
so say something happens off of school grounds, say it would be lunchtime, and somebody reports it to the school, off the school grounds. Is it our responsibility to investigate that?
Not always. We do have the ability to discipline students for off-school activity, and lunch, a little bit more latitude with lunch, because there really are students during that time, right? So we do have some authority during that time. We usually don't, though. Speeding is a great example. We usually, of course, we don't have speeding in our student handbook, probably. There's probably something that catches it, but.
Is the school resource officer around at lunch? Is he walking?
They are out patrolling at lunch, so they help support the businesses, and then, of course, you know, traffic violations when students are driving.
Mhm.
Not just to catch kids, but to be a presence for safety, much like we use in inside buildings.
But potentially, you could come and walk through the cafeteria. PR,
Correct.
build relationships.
I think he stays here for the middle school lunch, right? Like today, he was helping when we had no power, so.
How long was it?
I don't know, 30, 45 minutes?
Probably. Kids probably liked it.
So if I walk down the hallway, like between periods, would I see a resource officer out walking around? Is he visible to the students?
So he, I would say there's a mix, not every period, because he also wants to be in his office so a student can come in and have a conversation too. So he's gotta create, it's kind of a mix. It's
Yeah.
much like a social worker.
The
Right?
last-
You don't want the
yeah.
social worker always in the hallway, but you don't want them never in the hallway.
So if they are in their office, a student that might be less comfortable approaching them in front of others,
Mhm.
maybe walk over to their office and sit down and have a conversation.
He does walk through the elementary also. You'll see him on the playground or just, checking in to rooms or talking to kids in the hallway.
So this is a discussion item. It's a discussion. Do we make it an action item tonight? Do we need a decision tonight? When do we need a decision?
I would think if you're in favor of it, tonight's the night. So
Because I
we
feel like
can
we're
at
taking
least
it
have
out.
a chance
Yeah,
to at least flesh it out.
Because before we get that far, I see the importance of it, I see the need for it, and I'm not against it for those reasons. But I do see the financial aspects of it and the hard decisions we're gonna have to make in another year. I haven't had one person from the public reach out to me and say, this is a good idea. Every one of them has said, if we got that kind of money, why aren't we putting it into programs or something else for the
I
school?
agree. I've heard the same.
So,
We've also looked at doing after-school programs.
I'm not talking about after-school programs.
Right, but I'm just
I'm
saying.
talking about teachers in the classroom. That's what I'm hearing from the public. So I don't wanna discredit that. I feel for your plight of the discipline, so, and I think that's incredibly important. So, but what the public is telling me is they are not for this.
And I think the reason this has been really tough is we do have a school resource officer and we do have 2 social workers in each building, right? 2 in each building. And an administrator, and I appreciate too that it's taking you away from those administrative things. And is it just this school year? I mean, I don't wanna keep coming back to COVID. The kids are still coming back from all of that and, I just don't remember it being always like this. And my personal opinion is, are we getting as much as I agree with Ron in that, are we getting as much as we could be getting from the SRO? Because I think in some ways it's a great idea, but I can't get over the money thing. That's where I'm really struggling also.
And I don't want to take anything away from our resource officer at all. I mean, I think it's grateful for what we have and what he does. But I do kind of wonder if we had the actual sit-down conversation on some of the situations that are going on, how hard it would be to maybe, I don't want to say get more help out of them, that's not the right word, but maybe
I think it's the right,
utilize a little,
I think it's the right word.
I
I think we're struggling and we need some more help, which is what Adina Students is. I mean, let's call it what it is.
I saw a video online and it talked about a school, I mean, they had fighting weekly, they had all this stuff going on. The first step they made was they put somebody visible walking through their hallways. Somebody that the kids got comfortable with, somebody that the kids, it made dramatic improvements with their situation. Nobody's gonna fix things overnight. I mean, we brought Jana in, she hasn't even got a full year in yet. I mean, she's learning a lot on the fly, I mean, she's dealing with a lot of situations. I wanna hope and think things will start to get easier. I mean, nobody walks in their first year and things are just cut and dry. I mean, I feel for everything you go through. But, when I think about the money we would spend, and yes, we all say it's ESSER money, but we also have other places we could still spend that money. And I do fear if we put this in place, we're gonna come back next year and one of 2 things is gonna happen. It's gonna work or it's not. And if it does work, that's great. But now we gotta look at where's the money gonna come from to keep it going.
Or are we going to get rid of our SRO position? Because it's going to come down to one or the other. if we don't have money.
Unfortunately, I think you're right.
Monty cut theirs. I don't know the reasons, but I'm guessing budget had something to do with it.
I mean, the other hard part of it, up to a month ago, we didn't even talk about this. I mean, we had a board meeting,
I
it was 2 weeks later we talked about it prior to last month's board meeting. So I get everything that's going on, but maybe we can reevaluate something. I mean, I looked at the job description, I looked at the list on the job duties, and, I mean, there's something that falls under everybody's category. It's not all Gina at all. I mean, it goes down the list, so.
One thing that kind of sticks in my head a little bit as I'm looking at all these is the vape. And I'm not saying that's not important to be monitoring, but do you remember when we bought the vape sensors, we asked the collections will it create us more problems? And a couple of the districts have reported that it bogged them down and they just shut them off. The sheer fact that they didn't have the time to deal with all of that.
Yeah, the
Not saying
sad
one-
part is now we're starting to see, and we do need to recalibrate and clean our vapes, but we're starting to see more drugs and stuff with those vapes, so I don't know that I want to.
As in the drugs are in the vape?
They're in the big one.
That's what's sensing, so. And they're not perfect.
Is there, and if you posted it and I missed it, I apologize, but, is there a written agreement between the city and the school district for the SRO?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
We
we
covered
approved
this,
that
a
last
little
month.
couple
Yeah.
months ago, we went over this.
Yeah.
Right,
So-
is it,
Something we talked about, or something I brought up was, is there a job description that we could attach to that, so we have a written,
I mean, I can read through the duties and stuff, I just.
Yeah, and didn't I provide you with Rochester's
I think so.
information?
I think so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because that was one that was most delineated to me, but yeah, no, they don't lay it out that this is, I'm assuming you mean like vape sensor goes off, this is whose responsibility it is, right?
or just the general duties of.
I think general, the more specific you get, the easier it is to go.
I mean, right now, it
Yeah,
just
not
says,
mine, not
it just
mine.
says it's a pretty general statement about the duties of the Granite Falls Police Department as assigned. Well, what are those? I have no idea, because we've never seen that part of the job description. I'm assuming the city of Granite Falls has a job description for this officer, both their duties outside of the school and their duties inside the school. What is it? And is that something that maybe needs to be modified to suit our need better?
I mean, maybe we need some discussion with Blake and the city on some of the stuff that's going on. And we might be surprised with what they have to say.
Yeah.
Maybe we can get something changed with the job description. They probably won't, they'll probably think it's a good idea. I mean, things get put in place. I read it and I kind of went, okay, what does this mean? So,
I want to assure you, Mrs. Anderson, that we hear you, and Mrs. Hanson, we hear you. I just think that we are all kind of, and some haven't said something, but I think that we've got a lot of opportunities for resources, and this is one more position that I think every one of us is thinking would only be 1 year, and, because we just can't simply afford to sustain it. And then there goes that relationship building. I mean, we all know it takes a while for kids to trust adults. I'm just one person, but I'm so on the fence about it. I hear the reason for it. I don't think we should do nothing. I think we need to continue to push these conversations to see, we can't go into the next school year without a better plan, because you do need to be doing your administrative duties with the staff, and what you were hired for wasn't just discipline. I mean, we have good kids here, and, there's just a bubble right now, and I don't know what's going on. Those are my opinions, I guess. I love
I think that, we need to do something or we're gonna lose Jenna and Rich. I think that, and our, enrollment is gonna continue to go down because parents don't want to hear every night that there's another fight at school. They're gonna go to another district, where,
I think
there isn't.
Yeah.
They're still
They don't
fighting.
hear,
yeah.
I know,
mean,
but if that's what they're hearing from their students all the time,
I'm
and
connected
there's a
to the Wilmer,
district.
the Wilmer district, and they're seeing lots of enrollment loss to their surrounding
Because of
districts
fights?
because of drugs, fights, et cetera.
I know that Rich and Jenna do a lot of extra work and then it's, we might be looking for more than what we ask for if we don't do something.
Well said. I agree with you.
Yeah.
I just
I
don't know
agree.
what the answer is.
So
Well,
maybe putting the,
we've been presented an answer, I guess, but.
maybe putting the cart in front of the horse, so in 1 year's time, we can't afford to sustain this, then what? What do we do then?
Then we have to make a decision which is better serving our community. Is an SRO better serving our school community? Is the dean of students better serving our school community? If it is effective, if we can even hire one.
But we don't know
Right.
without
Right.
trying.
One thing I've learned about making cuts from the last round we did it, when it comes time to cuts, every single thing is the most important thing we've ever cut,
Right.
Correct.
and it hurts all the same.
But how can we assure that without talking to the SRO and without talking to the city, we can't get some of the same opportunities from them as we're gonna get from the dean of students? How can we guarantee that? We can't. How many of our fights are returned? How many fights are kids that have had previous offenses? Are they all different every time? I mean,
Yeah, it can be, I
I'm
think
just
it
saying,
can
I
be
mean,
a
you
first
gotta-
time offense, or it could be,
whether you have a dean of students sit there, even if we find them, how can we even assure that it's gonna be any better than our SRO officer if we could possibly work together on something? I mean, there's no guarantee on anything, I get, it. We're taking a stab in the dark, and we do think about everything Rich does, and Gina does, and Lisa does. Nobody's looking past that. We also have parents wanting to see more out of other areas of our school that we're not able to do as well. We have a lot of needs. I've talked to multiple parents that are filling out those surveys right now. This same topic got brought up involved in that, so.
and it probably will show up on that survey.
And we're not talking $30,000, we're talking, and I agree, it's important, you're completely right, Sylvia, and Amanda, yes, we need to do something, what is right?
I don't know what the right answer is, but
I know.
Well, it is a discussion item, and it sounds like we aren't anywhere near moving it to an action item. And if we did, I have no idea.
Unless somebody makes that motion, you have
I mean,
no reason to
it's-
think it.
Well, that is true.
But, so if we don't make it an action item and then we go on to next month, discuss it again next month, we're just gonna keep discussing it and then what happens?
When will we have results of this survey?
By,
We're due May 15th, I don't remember.
yeah, he
what
was
the
still,
turnaround-
they were still gonna
the
try
deadline.
and get it done. They need 2 weeks to analyze it.
Isn't
So
it by the
May
June board
15.
meeting that
I
night?
think,
He was gonna try by the June
For the
board
June
meeting,
board
but
meeting.
they were anticipating afterwards.
After that.
because there's something about, something was delayed a couple days, or a few days, right? But I think it was the question, or the.
I think
briefing of
I think, for some reason, I think it was gonna be ready by the June board meeting. but-
That was the original.
I was gonna ask, cause wasn't it that he was gonna suggest suggesting that we had a separate meeting to talk
Okay.
about the results.
Right, like a work session to
Yeah,
discuss.
yeah, I do kind of remember that, I think, he said that most people have like just a separate meeting to discuss the results.
That makes sense.
Well, it is a discussion item, although I did hear some, if, in order for it to ever become an action item, it has to be a motion and second and approval to move it to an action item.
In my opinion is I would like to see the results of the survey and what kind of feedback we get from parents, what they have to say on that survey. You know, I hate to make this wait one more month, but we are how many days from the end of the school year? So, I mean, we still have time to either, you know, do this for next year. But I just think, the results of the survey might give us some guidance too. Just my opinion. So it's not, we're not saying no, we just, you know, we just need a little bit. I don't think one more month is gonna make a difference, because we're not gonna be hiring a dean of students for, how many days of school, what, 15, 20?
4 weeks.
How many?
4 weeks.
4
That's
weeks.
all.
Right.
June first is
coming.
last.
June first.
We're
getting
know
there.
the exact number of days,
Yeah.
because they heard it.
Come on, you guys know that, the kids are definitely counting down.
counting.
So I just feel like, you know, we're not gonna do that this school year anymore. So, and I think you realize that, so I don't think it's gonna make that much of a difference to wait another month to see the results of that survey, to get a little bit of parent feedback too.
Other thoughts? I did hear a request to see, what Jeremy said was an as assigned or something, duties as assigned, to find out what those duties are.
For the SRO?
Yeah.
I'd like to see the city's description for that officer. Is that something that should be a part of our contract?
It wasn't, so I looked at what I could find on like the Department of Public Safety and then tried to look up some schools' contracts. I think that's what I shared with you, I don't know, a couple months ago.
I think it is, and maybe
And
that
there
job.
really wasn't any job description that I could find, but,
Well, do we, then, my next
because they're
question-
not our employee.
Right, do we need to have something like that then, more than just the general?
Well, I do have a thing down here too. I'll probably meet with Chief Strufford and SRO and talk about it.
Yeah, and I guess what stirred my comment on that is, our contract references what's in that job description as assigned by the city of Grand Falls. Well, what is that officer assigned by the city of Grand Falls?
Well, and to us, I think what we're saying is, that would be a starting point, but ultimately, how else can we approach this?
Right. Yes,
That's what you're saying.
exactly.
Is it possible when you meet with Chief Stewart, would you want a board member with you?
I can try. I just have busy schedules, so as one of you can make it one.
It's not really hard for me, it's really close to my office, right there.
It is.
It's slow season for me as well.
I just wonder if that would, if you wanted to have,
No,
to help explain where kind of our disconnect is at, I'd be willing to make sure I could fit it into my schedule,
Okay.
as like Matt is. And come
I
back.
think that's a place to start.
All right, will do.
I realize this cripples the school a little bit on it, but I don't think anyone here at this table is ready to make a quick decision on a big decision.
Yeah, and just like it's been said, Jeremy and I are gonna spend that money, and that's why you do not have a budget for next year yet. I think that's
When does that have to be spent by?
September 24. But let's spend it earlier.
Yeah.
We will not leave one penny.
No. All right, any other discussion about Dean of Students tonight? Okay, e-learning for 2023-24.
Would you, I know you kinda touched on it, principals, can you kinda give us an idea? I know you don't have all the results, cause it's a terribly hectic time of year, but it also doesn't do any good to wait till all the students and staff are gone. So you wanna talk about what you're gonna use for a strategy for getting this and or anything, and then maybe the board wants to talk about what they're hearing.
I can start. I think for us, I mean, we've weighed a lot of things in the elementary, but if you get a chance, check out our parent surveys, but, you know, some of the feedback, I think, is just glancing at the responses, overwhelmingly parents wanting learning. You know, that was one of our point blank questions, is this, there were a few that I've seen already that have said they would rather not have e-learning, but the majority was yes. Things that have really been discussed a lot in the elementary is, what do those live Zooms look like for little people? If you've ever sat in on a Zoom with kindergartners, it is very different than sitting in on a Zoom with 8th graders. A lot of parents, you know, had input on that, and so we're gonna be looking at what does that look like for our primary grades. Some other things that we've just talked about on staff is, I think a big topic for us is like devices. Sending home devices for elementary kids that normally do not go home logistically is going to be very, very difficult. So take a 4th grade classroom. Those devices are already wired into carts because they use those every single day. So if Mr. Schneider were to call a 2 o'clock dismissal early and we are thinking we might not have school tomorrow, I don't think that we could get those carts torn apart, cords, get the bags, get the inventory. Even if we had already done all of that paperwork ahead of time, it would be almost impossible to do that, especially not even knowing if we're gonna have a snow day. We've talked a lot about like, what would that look like? If that wasn't a hurdle, what would live Zooms look like? A lot of feedback that we're also hearing is sometimes parents struggle with elementary kids because they're not home. So if you have a 3rd grader and you're at work and she's being, you know, supervised by her 7th grade brother, it's gonna be pretty tough to get her on a Zoom, unless she is, you know, independent and is gonna do that herself. We've looked at all different options. Bottom line for us, we just wanna make it better than it was this year, and include more education for the kids. But parents have had quite a few suggestions on the survey, like I said. I'm guessing right now we've had at least 120 kids represented on the surveys, because earlier today I glanced at like how many grade levels were noted.
What kind of comments are you hearing?
Wide range. I think a big one, not a big one, a more common one would be, for those of you that have seen elementary, is, so like this year we did, it's best described as like a bingo card, even though it's not. But it'd be like language arts, 5 activities, math, music, phy-ed. What we did was we took one document and put it on 5 colors, but it was the same document. So one of the things I noticed on the survey was a lot of parents said, switch it up more often. By time the 2nd e-learning day was done, their child was bored, like, we need more activities. And so we've talked about, does that mean for every 2 days we're gonna switch out with a new form? I think that was one common thing that I noticed. I haven't read through all of them yet, but.
Anything in the middle school, high school comments?
So, so first I'll say, in all categories, it all, you know, majority was yes, we want e-learning days. There definitely are, you know, a lot of, responses on this side and also on the exact opposite, right? We have, some parents saying, you know, we want the lessons to continue and the rigor to stay up. We have some parents saying, you know, this is stressful, it's hard at home, it's too time consuming. We're having some have said a concern with all of the screen time for the whole day, and wondering, they know area schools, they have probably a little bit more of like what you do at the elementary, where they have options of kids to do their work, but they don't have to join live. There's, the biggest thing for students when they responded, if they didn't attend if they didn't attend e-learning, why not? The biggest response was because of internet issues. And I know we do have, a certain population or a number of kids where they don't have internet, and so we definitely would want to look at how are we providing an opportunity for them to still get their education and get that opportunity to receive that information, and also not have to be counted absent that day because they didn't attend live. So that's something we'll want to be looking at as well. Trying to think, some of the kids had said, if they could have just gotten all their assignments right away, they could have gotten through things, at their pace throughout the day. So it's just a really mix on both sides, and still sifting through all of it still, so.
My concern was, I think it was back in, obviously during the winter here, when you folks sent a message to me that we're done with e-learning. We did our 5, that's all we're doing, right? So, I personally believe that we have the greatest impact when our kiddos are in front of us. In person first, any other method second. If they can't be here and we do nothing, that's not on either of those options. I don't think we're having an impact. They might just get it through age and experience, they might learn, but that's really giving the haves everything they can, and the have-nots, nothing. Right? It's not leveling the playing field. So my thing is, maybe we need to look at, we're making up these days. If we think only 5 of them are valuable, let's make them up. Montevideo did it, Marshall did it, RCW did it. Lakeview did the opposite. They used tons of e-learning days. Canby did the same thing. I just think that's the dilemma we face. Do we really value it? Or is it just check the box? Let's count it as a day of school.
I can tell you my 9th grader did nothing on his e-learning days. Absolutely nothing.
Because it wasn't valuable, or because?
He learned nothing. The teachers had nothing set up for him. That's the dilemma that we do with the e-learning days, is that some of the teachers have nothing, set up nothing for them to do.
See, I had a 9th grader as well that did probably 5 times the work that she would have had she been in school. I mean, it was unreal what was being expected.
My 9th grader too.
If you actually did what they were asking, and you were in that position to go through it, it was unreal. I mean,
But some kiddos
Even had more work doing
need
e-learning.
somebody there, need a bigger safety net, or a bigger support system, more direct instruction. I don't know.
It sounds like there's some inconsistencies though as far as, and I agree as well from my own children's experiences
With the teachers?
with the teachers.
I agree with that. At least
What's
some
being
teachers,
provided
like,
on those days.
we're not gonna have a Zoom today, you just, you
Yes,
know,
exactly.
whatever. No Zoom.
Well, and we do run into problems, you know, like she said with the internet.
Right.
We actually had a couple staff members the last time, they literally lost their internet.
I'm just gonna say,
And
where I
and
live,
we can't solve that, cause if you're
Mhm.
stuck out,
if there's a
Right.
whiteout, right, if there's a whiteout,
they can't get in
I'm
here.
not getting internet. It's not happening.
Oh.
So should our calendar show 4 days of makeup? I'm pretty sure that, I mean, I'm not saying all the extra days, whether it's Easter, whatever, blah, blah, blah. We have a lot of days off at different times, and like you said with makeup, pretty sure Marshall, they just started pulling days away.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying I wanna make up 10 days, trust me, that's not what I'm trying to say.
But the reason we didn't do that is because, what, 3, 4 years ago, we agreed with our staff.
I know.
We
that's
wouldn't do
exactly-
that.
I know.
And all I'm saying is if we're gonna change it, now's the time to change it. Let's not get into February and, oh, we decided we changed our mind, Good Friday's not gonna be there, Easter Monday's not gonna
Right.
be there.
So are you saying that you wanna, it's all or nothing, we're eliminating it, you wanna eliminate e-learning because it's not valuable?
No,
Or you're
that's
saying
not
that?
at all. I'm saying, let's improve e-learning, but let's
Sure,
not
sure,
drop off
improve it.
7 days.
Right, right, but,
I mean, what kind of message are we sending?
I think
And
five's
I
a good
know
message.
it's tough to
Yeah.
teach in
Yeah.
June. I know it's tough to teach.
right,
But, hey, I think that if we work at it, they will get something out of it. It might look different.
yeah. I think too, that we're hearing too, that there's such a disparity between some of the teachers' assignments, because they shouldn't be harder than they would be if they were sitting here. So that's gonna come from discussions and talks about expectations. And mine had a mix. I mean, when I was home, if he was home, I was home, and I would check on him, and he was doing things, but then there were other teachers that just didn't have anything. And that's maybe a grade level thing when they're older. There isn't. There weren't enough.
Well, I think
from
the
seventh grade to
policy,
ninth
if I recall correctly, is that, you know, it's not that each teacher has to be on the live Zoom for the full amount of time teaching, you know?
Right,
They just for sure have to touch it, and then it
Check
can
in at the
be,
beginning.
and then they can be working on their assignments, and then they're available though still during that hour when students have questions. But it also can be used where they are doing instruction
Yeah.
the whole time as well.
So just to refresh my memory, say we do the 5 e-learning days, what else do we have set aside for snow days? Living in the state of Minnesota,
But remember, we have more days in our calendar than what we need. We only need
Right.
165 days, and we have 171 student contact
So-
days. That's where we got the extra 6 that we used this year.
and we will gain some hours the way we switch the PLC time to in the morning.
Yeah.
Students will have more.
Yeah, but, okay, let's really look at
Okay.
that. All right, you add 1 minute onto my chemistry class, I think I was a pretty intense teacher. I didn't get 1 minute of that.
Yeah.
You add that over 171, I didn't get 2.5 hours of learning on it. I don't know.
So do you have a recommendation to?
No, because we
Well,
don't
then-
have to decide this until, but I would, if we're gonna look at, say, Good Friday and Easter Monday, I would like that known before the school year starts. So
Right.
our
Yeah,
staff
you need to
can
make
plan
I agree. It's
accordingly.
on the calendar then.
And I understand it's gonna
Either way.
impact students because maybe they will plan something and have to be gone.
Right.
We'll have to be
Right.
flexible with that. It's not about the staff, but it is about the staff, because we're not gonna get any education if I put somebody in there. If I'm gonna be teaching kindergarten, the kids probably aren't gonna learn that.
Isn't that on the calendar, or it's been in the past where, you know, first snow day is forgiven, the second snow day will be made up on this day. Did we have that in the past on some of the calendars?
About 4 or 5 years ago,
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
what
we
we
did have
agreed
that,
to
yes.
take off of there. Because because it became hard on the staff.
So
Well,
it's
it is
because
hard.
staff wanted to take vacation
Correct.
on
Yep,
like
and-
Easter.
Right.
Or, yep.
Did we go to school again?
We also did that in the past too.
And then, yeah,
We did
because
what in the past?
Went to school in June.
we're going to school in June, June second's the last day of school.
That thing is great.
Isn't there something in the teacher's contract too, that they can't take they can't have vacation? Help me out here, the last,
So many days of the school year.
Yeah.
Last.
is that still?
And then around the holiday,
in
but
contracts
that's,
like that?
I think that we should have like maybe 3 makeup days planned or something.
In
like
that calendar,
And,
and put it on the calendar so
Like-
parents are aware and.
yeah, that is
Yeah.
a possibility that we may have to use it.
You know what, maybe we won't have any snow days.
So if
next
you're
year.
a staff person and you plan a vacation, because it's currently a day off, but that's a possible makeup day, their option is to use one of their days off, potentially,
personal.
personal days, right? So they could still choose to take it if we have school in session.
If they haven't used them.
I mean, I only worry a little about a whole we may or may not if they plan an expensive trip, flight, airfare and all that. I mean, there has to be a little bit of,
Discretion use.
well, and sensitivity to their, I mean,
Their employee, yep.
We don't wanna make things harder for our teachers, we're just,
well said, yeah.
I mean,
Correct.
I mean, I think it's hard. We live in Minnesota and this is, wake up call to how bad it used to be. It's bad. It was really bad this winter. Like these were the days when I was growing up, like, we didn't have e-learning days.
Nowadays.
We didn't even really cell
You knew you were going to school in
You
June.
had one of those.
Oh, yeah, we were definitely in school, like, definitely. All right, so that's in progress, still talking
Yeah.
about it. Okay. Correspondence, we received the notice and desire to negotiate from Nehemiah Lee, right, educational service. So you're gonna throw out some dates to them?
Yep, June 5th and 14 with the high pressure 14.
Okay, a 1+ on the 4th.
Anything you wanna talk, nothing you really wanna talk about other than that? Right. Upcoming events, finance committee is meeting May 10th at 5:30. The curriculum advisory committee is May 15th at 5:15. Baccalaureate, May 17th, auditorium at 6:30. Policy committee meeting, May 24th, in the boardroom at 5:30. There is no school for Memorial Day on May 29th. Last day of the 2022-23 school year is June 2nd. I'll just add, seniors aren't in school that week. We gave them that week to help.
Except
their
June
parents.
1st,
June 1st, they have to be here.
they have to be here.
And graduation is June 2nd in the Esplin Gym at 7, and board meeting is June 12th at 6, right back here. Anything else?